Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm Brandon Waltons, managing editor of Texas Scorecard, and right now we're joined for an uncut conversation with Weston Martinez, a candidate for Texas Land Commissioner. Weston, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, man, thanks for having me.
So, you first things first. Why run for Land Commissioner? Why run for the seat right now?
You know, I wasn't looking for a job. I was just doing my job. 7-8 years ago, whenever we were trying to sound the alarm about the Alamo and about this Reimagine the Alamo program that the liberal socialists in San Antonio were trying to concoct. And as I went across Texas giving a presentation about the 12 different layers of government entities that created a private-public partnership to then control the land around the Alamo, it became very clear to me that I felt like Colonel Travis, very much alone and very much drawing a line in the sand. And that culminated where more people got around, a small group of people like Maggie Clopton Wright, this is Texas Freedom Force, Lee Spencer White. But again, not very many people. And so here we were just fighting, and had a couple of victories here and there. And finally, we were able to defeat them at the Texas Historical Commission. And I was the last one to speak out of a 10-hour conference call, whereby which I told them, as a former real estate commissioner, the land for the cenotaph actually was codified in law, signed by the Attorney General of Texas and the General Counsel of the City of San Antonio, and the land around the cenotaph could only be used for showing and erecting and maintaining the cenotaph. Well, the chairman says, is legal counsel on with us right now? I think you need to have a meeting with the executive director and also with our architects. And I told him, I said, well, I'm glad to do that. I said, but if you allow this plan to go through, I said, you will let the Castro brothers have control over the Alamo. They created the guiding principles for this Reimagine the Alamo program, and their mother on national syndication said that the defenders of the Alamo were nothing more than rapists and drunks. And so being part of the new modern day Alamo defenders, again, we were just doing our job, man. We weren't looking for a job. And as things with Hurricane Harvey came out, we were working to help people during Hurricane Harvey. I helped direct Franklin Graham's ministry, Samaritan's Purse, where to deploy, because I had worked with them on a bunch of different things. And so after God really kind of opened the door and said, hey, you need to do this, I never realized how much my professional and political background to a T absolutely facilitates every facet of the General Land Office, which I joke when I'm on the campaign trail. There's nothing general about the General Land Office.
Yeah, there's certainly.
It's a highly sophisticated situation.
A lot in that role. And so we'll start with, you mentioned the Alamo. Obviously, Reimagining the Alamo was a project spearheaded by the current commissioner, George P. Bush, who's running for Attorney General right now. What would you do differently if you were in the office?
Well, let me tell you what. Day one, here's what we're going to do. We're going to tell the United Nations to get the hell out of the Alamo, because UNESCO is in charge of the missions and involved in what happens there. Day one, we're going to stop burials that are taking place at the Alamo. Right now, you can pay money to go spread your ashes among the Alamo defenders. And I can't wait till the liberals in San Antonio try to say, oh, well, look, we have Muslim ashes, therefore, we must, display a Quran exhibit as part of the defenders of the Alamo. So those are a couple of things. Also, day one, I'm going to request that the Attorney General of Texas take a audit on every single document that was signed between the General Land Office, the City of San Antonio, and this private-public partnership that exists, because I know personally of an individual that was told, if you gave us $250,000, you could be on the board of directors as well. So when we see things that are being sold, something as sacred as the cradle of liberty, we have to put people over politics, and it's not hard to do in this situation because so many people, they were just trying to do something on their own. And so protecting the Alamo, protecting the cenotaph, making sure that the history doesn't go beyond the 13 days inside of the Alamo. The liberals want to take it and they want to say, let's talk about the last 4,000 years and all these kinds of things. So, and being from San Antonio, being born and raised and living in San Antonio, I'll be the first land commissioner from the Alamo City to serve in that seat. And quite honestly, I think there is great opportunity for us to make the sovereignty of Texas be more sovereign and have the people in Texas feel that independent sovereignty that we know is a God-given gift.
You also mentioned Hurricane Harvey. What role does the land office have in preventing, or at least preventing, some of the fallout from some of these disasters?
Sure.
Certainly, we've seen a bit of that over the last several years. Again, I kind of pose the same question: is there something you would do differently than we've seen over the last few years?
Absolutely, and my professional background, again, and political background allows me the ability to see the solutions where other people see problems. So directly, one, people don't realize that with the land office, you're dealing with HUD, FEMA, all these different federal agencies to get money to be allocated to get people out of their homes, demolish their homes, get their homes built back, get them back in their homes. So when you're doing that, my infrastructure background, my home building background, my utility background, my former commissioner background, all that kicks in. I retired from Southwestern Bell AT&T as a design engineer and planner. Well, one of the things that we can do is create a Texas First program where instead of the Cajun Navy coming in to save our bacon, we can have Texans go deploy, get in there early, and the earlier we can get in there, then we can find stormwaters at higher levels. So now me, as the representative of this entire group, I can go to those agencies and say, hey, we don't need $50 million, we need $150 million. And, we at the General Land Office, we generate our own revenue. That's a big distinction with other state agencies. I mean, this agency was created before the office of the governor. This was created by the Republic of Texas. So I want to get to a place where we at the Land Commission can deploy funds straight to these people, impacted Texans, so they can get their work going. So that way the Texans aren't waiting for the federal government to deploy revenue. Instead, let's let the state of Texas wait on it, and let's us do our part to get that out there sooner. But the other part that people don't realize, unless you have the infrastructure background, is hurricane hits, stormwaters exist. After the waters recede, there's all of these engineering projects that take place, stormwater drainage. There's a big mitigation program. Well, here's the problem. The federal flooding groups, they, by their own account, say that they're 40 to 70% unidentified of flooded areas. So think about it. Your house just flooded. I got you back in your house. I did a stormwater drainage plan over here. So there's a new channel. So when the next hurricane hits, the water flood goes by you.
Right.
But I'm working off of bad information because all of the stormwater damage, all the stormwater information that I have is off. So we have to put our hands on the steering wheel. We have to take a stronger approach. We have to take a more hands-on approach on how we help these people get back in their time of need. And those are just a couple of quick things. People can go to my website at westonfortexas.com or my YouTube channel and see a whole bunch of different things about that. But that's a big issue, a big thing that I would do differently.
Okay. Switching gears a little bit, we've seen for quite some time now, but especially over the last year, a surge over the southern border, right? We've got a major border crisis right here in Texas. Does the land office have a role in stopping illegal crossings?
You and your viewers are going to love this. God has blessed me in the history of Texas. No one has said that we can use the General Land Office to secure the border until I started doing it. We started doing that, and every other person running for land commissioner is now echoing that, including the current commissioner has now taken a stance on that, supported that issue, and has even gone out there and started what I have initiated, and that is building the wall. You see, we don't have to wait on anybody to build the wall through the General Land Office. Again, we generate our own revenue. So, absolutely. And I've been down to the border a whole bunch. I'm from San Antonio. People kind of think that's Mexico anyway. A lot of family in the valley. But you've got, if you build a 40-foot wall, there's probably I probably got somebody in Mexico that can build a 43-foot ladder. So how do we really long-term solve this problem? And a additional part of the solution is a unique one that I have, and that is to take the Rio Grande River, fill it up, make it navigable, and make it much like the Panama Canal. You have 15,000 18-wheelers a day crossing at the Laredo Bridge, and that's why you have so much human trafficking on IH-35. Well, if I turn that into a port, not only a trucking port, but a vessel port, if the water's up 3 feet high than what it currently is, nobody crosses. So now you have a situation to bring economy to a region that has never, ever been seen in the history of Texas. And you talk to any military person and they'll tell you a natural barrier is always more secure than any sort of man-made barrier. And you go to my website, look at the Facebook page, YouTube page, you can see pictures. And the the river itself is 300 to 600 yards wide, all the way everywhere. And the floodplain is 1.5 miles wide. So we know we've got all these tankers that are sitting out in the ocean that can't make port, and we've got Ron DeSantis opening the y'all come sign. Well, they're going to come through the Panama Canal. If they do that, they'll gladly come to the Rio Grande first and come upriver where all of these trucks are already coming through. So that would secure the border and end human trafficking exponentially from what we've ever seen before. And somebody will ask, well, how are you going to fill up the river? I found there's a treaty between the U.S. and Mexico created in the 1800s. And guess who's 5 years behind on their water contribution to the Rio Grande River? Mexico. So now I've got a treaty on the southern border that is not being enforced. Now you think I'm not going to be able to shame every elected official from the federal level to the state level? Why aren't you enforcing the border? Why aren't you enforcing a U.S. treaty that would secure the border and wouldn't cost us money? Why wouldn't you do that? And those are the kind of real solutions that we bring to the table because, again, God's really blessed us with the ability to do this job on day one.
Are there any other issues, kind of like that one, talking about the border, where people wouldn't think that the land office could actually make an impact?
People don't realize that the General Land Office oversees 10 veterans nursing homes. Those nursing homes had twice the death rate of nursing homes across the United States of America. And I went and checked about the contractors that were working there and were they the culprit, and I found other agencies where they were working at. Those people aren't the problem. Our Texas veterans got Fauci'd. We've got administration that's following CDC protocols and guidelines, and that is one of the things that we have to stop. We have to recognize that we are a sovereign state, and we have to embrace those things that keep us the Lone Star State. So people don't know that we have veterans nursing homes. People don't know that as land commissioner, I can keep the BLM the hell out of Texas, Bureau of Land Management, or Black Lives Matter, take your pick. The problem we had at the Red River a couple of years ago, where the Bureau of Land Management came in, had an issue with a rancher, was because a flood came through, the Trinity River, the Red River migrated, and now the southern tip of the border was different. Well, the land office oversees all of the surveyors. They hadn't done their job to go out there and reallocate where it was. So that was something that was happening. I'll tell you another thing that we can do at Land Commission nobody knows about. I'm going to call day one for an audit of all of the land sold by the General Land Office in the last 10 years. And the reason why is because 2 million acres in Texas right now is owned by foreign countries. Everybody heard about the Chinese general that owned 200 square miles in North Texas. You know what? Goldman Sachs opened an office in China. They bought that entity. Entity that owned that asset, and now that asset of that ranch is now owned by Goldman Sachs China. Folks, it's a hostile takeover. And as land commissioner, if I do an audit and I find out that you bought a piece of land and you were just a straw man in the purchase for, a regime like that, well, when I find fraud, I got 2 years to report it. Well, I can undo that whole deal. So nobody realizes that's some of the things that you do at the General Land. But honestly, I don't think anybody's ever thought about how they can weaponize this office. I deal with the State Board of Education on a daily basis as land commissioner.
Right.
People don't realize that. The permanent school fund, permanent university fund, and the veterans benefits all get funded from me doing my job as land commissioner. And if you don't know how to manage the land, you won't have the money to put into those things. Well, the permanent school fund, you guys are probably one of the few people that know that's where school boards go to get their school bonds.
Right.
Now imagine if you're coming to me wanting to get a school bond and I ask you questions like, what's your square foot utilization of your real estate? What's your disparity in salary compensation from your administration to your lowest paid teacher? How many funded teachers positions do you have on your books that are not currently being deployed? And what's your you start asking these questions, people are going to start backing off, and that would allow us the ability to slow down the rate of debt that schools can actually get into. Because if you look at the permanent school fund, check the numbers. It is way over leveraged. We've got to get some common sense into our government at all levels.
Why do you think it is? I've asked a number of people this question. It's the question you get all the time. You've probably heard this. Why is it that when people go to office a lot of times, those campaign promises never really happen? Why do you think there's that disparity so often?
Well, I'll tell you, it's real simple. And the first legislative session that I went, and I never went to the Capitol. I was on the State Republican Executive Committee having our first private tour at the Capitol. And this very nice, sweet lady, she says, I've been to the Capitol 23 times. How many times have you been inside the Capitol? And I said, it's my first time. She looked at me like I did something wrong, and I told her, I said, well, ma'am, I treat this place like Sodom and Gomorrah. I said, if I need to be here, God will put me in here. If I don't need to be here, I don't need to be here. And when I went to the first opening legislative day, I figured it out. And the reason is, the difference is, it's just like high school. The legislature is just like high school. The difference is that in the legislature, everybody's popular. So now you've got that guy from, Rowlett or, wherever, who has never, had anybody listen to him, has never had a pretty girl talk to him, and now you've got all of these lobbyists and paying attention, and they cave. But as we move forward, I made a comment the other day, there's only two parties in the United States and in Texas. And it's not Republicans and Democrats, folks. It's patriots and traitors. And that's really where we are today. And as we move forward, we know people are in one of those two categories. So that's the reason why you see people cave or sell out, I think, is because they've never been able to deal with something like that. But I've been a former statewide commissioner before, so I mean, I'm not worried about keeping people happy, except the people.
Last question before we have to wrap up here, focusing on the campaign. This seat, obviously, it's an open seat, so there's a lot of candidates in there. One of the candidates is endorsed by President Donald Trump. What's your strategy for winning this race?
I can tell you that being endorsed by Texas Ag Commissioner Sid Miller, being endorsed by Sheriff Joe Arpaio, America's toughest sheriff, being endorsed by Roger Stone, being endorsed by people like Maggie Clopton Wright and Texas conservative leaders across the state of Texas, they know who the real person is that is the modern day defender of the Alamo. And I've run for statewide office before, and I got near 350,000 votes. So we know that I've got the name ID. People know the issues that I have fought for and defended. I mean, nobody else in this race is calling for a fourth special session. I'm the only one calling for a fourth special session.
Well, I think I see Senator Buckingham, I think, has put her name for a fourth special session. No?
No. The document you put out has 30 people on it, and her name is not one of them. So, you've got all of these people, and if she did, it was in the last 48 hours, so I'd be interested to know that. I'll find that out. But, you have people that, and you mentioned Senator Buckingham, she never fought against gender mutilation. She took money from the Border Health PAC down in the Valley, that is the health PAC tied to the gender mutilation hospital down in the Valley. So when you look at how are we going to make Texas less rhino, I'm the way. I'm not the only one, because there's other people that need to get elected, but it's people like me that put people over politics and move forward in a leadership perspective that is a conservative warrior. That's why Dr. Hotze, Jonathan Saenz individually, that's why these people are supporting me for Texas Land Commissioner. And I'm the only one that has the professional political background to do the job on day one. You only have to look. You only have to look at Washington, D.C. To see what it is to elect somebody that's incapable of executing the job. I don't think we want that at the General Land Office.
If people want to help you out, want to follow your campaign, where can they do that?
Go to westonfortexas.com on all the social media at Weston Martinez. And we've traveled almost probably over 40,000 miles so far.
Wow.
We'll probably travel 75,000 miles before we get to March 1st. And we're everywhere, and we're coming everywhere. So be part of the solution.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us.
God bless. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Have a great day.
You made it to the end of this video. You're probably one in a million. But since you're here, make sure you go to texasscorecard.com to find more journalism and commentary, all things pertaining to Texas. Make sure you also like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and hit the bell. That way you can be notified when new videos come out. Thanks.